The MEAC TV schedule continues this weekend as Bethune-Cookman will face North Carolina A&T State live on ESPN3 with a broadcast Saturday night on ESPNU beginning at 10:30. We will start this morning off with Morgan State head coach Fred Farrier. Morgan State picked up its first win last week versus Savannah State and will travel to Howard this weekend. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
And I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm fine, Coach. Just talk about and recap last week's big homecoming win versus Savannah State.
Well, it was a good day for our university and our football program. I was glad our guys and our young men got to experience a win for the first time this season. It was a special weekend for us being homecoming. We also dedicated our Legends Plaza, which is a plaza with two commemorative statues of Coach Earl Banks and Coach Eddie Hurt here on Morgan State's campus, just celebrating their accomplishments and the history of Morgan State University football. So to come away with a good win, where our kids played well on homecoming day was really a good day. Our defense continues to play well. We started a little bit slow with a big play there early in the game, but then they settled in and kind of got back to what they normally do, which was good to see, and being able to overcome a mistake early in the game. And our offense finally got going. We got our two running backs going, running the ball. Our quarterback didn't turn the ball over, and we got a receiver over 100 yards. So special teams contributed as well with a block kick, scoring twice on special teams. And really it was an overall really good day for our program. All three phases played well, and we even got some of our younger guys some experience in the game, getting a chance to get in the game for the first time in front of their home fans here at homecoming. So it was a good day for our program.
And also talk about you're going into another homecoming environment this weekend as you prepare to battle the Bison of Howard University.
This is another really important game for us. Howard is playing really well. They're coming off a big win against Delaware State. They're a much improved football program, football team. Their head coach, Mike London, is doing an excellent job of putting their kids in positions to be successful. Offensively, they're doing some really good stuff. It's different for our league, so that always gives them an advantage of people seeing this stuff for the first time, and they're a really good, fundamentally sound team on defense. And Coach London will have those guys prepared. The quarterback is definitely somebody that you have to account for. He's playing really well. He's a threat running the ball. He's a threat passing the ball. And you always have to know as well and account for Anthony Field-Y'all. So, those guys are doing well and playing well, and it'll be an important week for us if our guys can lock in and understand their assignments, understand our game plan, and know what we want to do against them if we're going to have success.
Coach, talk about your defense. You had 7 sacks last week, and just talk about at the high level of play they're displaying so far this season.
We've been excited about our defense all season. Our defensive coordinator, Ernest Jones, and our defensive staff have done a really good job of putting our kids in positions to be able to play fast, to be able to understand what we want them to do defensively, and to be able to execute what we're trying to execute, against each of our opponents. I think those guys continue to get better. Those guys continue to better understand our defense, where they're supposed to be at, what we want them to do, and how to execute the defensive calls that they're being given. And just week to week, those guys continue to play hard. Those guys are coming off the ball. Those guys are, playing well in coverage on the back end, and our linebackers are making calls and getting guys in the right positions. So those guys have gotten better every week, starting with the Towson game. I mean, they held Towson University to 100 yards of total offense, and this week will be a really big challenge for us. Howard has a number of weapons offensively. Their quarterback is playing really well. He's throwing the ball. He's got touchdowns throwing. He's got touchdowns running. He's their leading rusher, and he's being very efficient passing the ball. So it's going to be a challenge for us. They've got some big play wide receivers. They got a guy averaging 36 yards a catch. So it'll be a challenge for us, and we'll have to play very well to come away, with a victory this weekend. And those guys, will need every bit of those guys playing well defensively and fitting into the gaps that they're supposed to fit into and executing their assignments to the best of their ability. So it'll be a big challenge for us this week, and we'll need those guys to step up and play well for us.
And coming off a confidence-building win during your homecoming, how do you think that bodes well for your offense, especially going against Howard?
Anytime you can have some success offensively and kind of get done what you think you can get done, I think it's good for your offensive football team. I think the biggest thing was our quarterback didn't turn the ball over yesterday. He didn't force a lot of throws, and he was pretty good at managing the game. We want to try to find a way to get better every week, but as we head into the Howard week, the Savannah State game is over, and within that game, there's still a lot of mistakes that we got to correct, and we'll be working all this week, starting yesterday, to get those mistakes corrected. So as we continue to try to just become a better offensive football team and the best offensive football team that our guys can be, we're going to continue to pay attention to the details. We're going to continue to demand that those guys do all the little things right, and we're going to continue that those guys understand the game plan and do their best to execute it. So our goal is to come in here and go 1-0 this week against Howard, to put our kids in a position to be successful with what we're asking them to do and to get them to play fast and play with confidence. Football is a game of execution, and if we can execute better than our opponent, I think we got an opportunity to be successful. And the biggest thing for us is just taking care of Morgan State, eliminating the turnovers, reducing the penalties, and executing our assignments without mental mistakes. And as long as we can do that, we'll have a chance in any game we play. And I think our focus has just been on Morgan State. Our focus will continue to be on Morgan State. Howard poses some challenges, but I think if our kids understand what their responsibilities are and what they're supposed to do, we'll match that up with what Howard does, and we should have every opportunity to be successful. And it'll come down to, again, not turning the ball over, not getting penalties, and not making mental mistakes. And that's what our focus is going to be on. Morgan State playing the best football game that Morgan State can play.
Coach, we have also one question waiting for you.
Okay.
Our question comes from the line of Phil Shaner with Sports Fever Television Network. Please proceed with your question.
Coach, the success of running, not only did you have one running back go over 100 yards, you had both guys go over 100 yards. Was that due to the offensive line finally healing up, or what was, finally success happens here? What do you think was the reason for it in the game on Saturday?
Number one, I think it was a combination of things. One, it was the first time all season since the Towson game that our true starting offensive line has all been out there at the same time. The second thing is I think our kids are just better understanding what we're asking them to do. Our running backs have been trying to be patient all season. They've been playing with a different group of guys up front, trying to learn those guys and what they do well. And this week we finally, asked them to do some things that they were comfortable executing. And, a combination of, those guys kind of pressing, trying to make something happen at the running back position and, being uncertain, and a bunch of young guys playing on the offensive line. Finally you get the group that practiced all preseason camp that the running backs are most comfortable with. You finally get them all back out there at one time when they're healthy and they can move around and kind of do some of the things that we think they can do. So, our offensive coaching staff, our offensive line coach, our offensive coordinator have all been working really, really hard to try to figure out what our kids can do best. I think, the key to us continuing to develop and getting better is us simply asking our kids to do things that they can do and not trying to get them to do things that they can't do. And, we've reduced the number of things that we've asked them to do that they're trying to do, and we're going to continue to search for new things that we can find that they can do well, that, as we prepare for each opponent, there's opportunities for us to be successful. But, those guys have been working hard. The running backs have been pressing, trying to have that breakout game, and it was really great to get those guys to kind of be able to do that at one time at homecoming and our first win of the season. It was a really good day for us. But the offensive line all being back out there healthy, the running backs kind of finding their way and hitting the holes in the proper way. And, just a day, man, where we probably were really just due to have some success because we've been really close, for a number of games this season, and it was good to finally put it all together on Saturday.
Our second call this morning takes us to Tallahassee, Florida, as we talk to Florida A&M head coach Alex Wood. The Rattlers fell to North Carolina A&T State this past Saturday and will travel to Hampton this Saturday afternoon. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine. Coach, you're coming off another close game last week, which was a matter of several plays that pretty much made the difference. When you're that close to victory, what do you address during the week of preparation in order to overcome the little things that can be the difference between a win and a loss?
Well, the thing that's hurting us is our self-destruction and penalties and turnovers all of a sudden. We started the season once again, handling those situations fairly well, but right now we're being penalized, disproportionately, it seems, and some of it's on us and others, I don't know, we look at the film and we try to evaluate that, and then really the things that we can't control is the turnovers, excuse me. You get a scoring position like we did against A&T, and we score there. We have the ball at the 2-3 yard line. We score, and it's 14-7 in our favor. Instead, we make a bad decision with the ball and don't get any points. So that's a turning point in the game. And then later on, we did some things that didn't help us, with field position and scoring opportunities as well. But we just got to fix those things and keep moving.
And in terms of fixing things, they have Hampton coming up on Saturday, and they enter with an undefeated record and coming off an emotional win. So just talk about what you've seen from the Pirates early on in preparation.
Yeah, they're playing well. They're playing winning football. They're 4-2, and they're finding a way to win games. And that's obviously a key element to teams that are playing well and have a chance to, at the end, to be considered a good football team. So we're looking forward to that challenge. Obviously, our spirits are high. We're looking forward to the game on the road at Hampton, and we understand that again they're playing good football, and we got our work cut out for us.
Coach, we were talking about Devin Bowers. He's coming off his second straight 100-yard plus game. What has he done in order to take that next step in terms of improving his productivity on a weekly basis?
Well, we're happy to have those yards and that productivity in the run game for sure. But that's one of the areas that I talked about earlier, where we've got to do a better job of being stewards of protecting the football, and especially all over the field. Doesn't matter where, but when you have opportunities to put your team and your offensive unit in a scoring position, you just got to do a good job. But he's doing a good job running the football for us, between the tackles and on the edge as well. Is doing a good job in pass protection for us. Can't catch the ball out of the backfield. But Devin, each week, he's a hard worker in practice, always has been, and he'll continue that forte, as he prepares for Hampton. He and the rest of our team, they'll get ready for the challenges that we have in front of us.
And one name that keeps popping up each week in the stat line is Jakarius Wilson, your linebacker. Talk about him and just what does he bring to the team in terms of his leadership and play on the field.
Well, he's leading by example. He does a good job in preparation each and every week. He likes to play the game. He's around the football a lot, hustles, gets to the football, can make open field tackles, which is a key, which is crucial. That's part of the improvement that we've made defensively. This year, week in and week out. But yeah, he brings good energy, to the practice field, and then plays well on Saturday.
And just also talk about offensively. I know you mentioned turnovers are big, but have just by them being able to move the ball at key situations, are you proud of that and satisfied with their effort execution-wise?
Yes, no, our players are playing hard. You know, they're executing. They're getting lined up. They're executing assignments, and just the things I talked about earlier is what we have to clean up. Yeah, I mean we know who to block, and we can finish on blocks. You know, for the most part, that's always a work in progress. Obviously, you know, each and every week, you know, you face a different opponent. Each guy will face a different challenge in terms of the man that he'll play in front of, and you have to be able to execute on that particular day. But no, our guys know who to block. They give good effort. We just again have to stop hurting ourselves with some of the mistakes.
Next up, we will have Bethune-Cookman head coach Terry Sims. The Wildcats defeated South Carolina State this past weekend and will face North Carolina A&T State this Saturday in Greensboro, which will be shown live on ESPN3 and also broadcasted later on ESPNU at 10:30 p.m. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm fine. Yourself?
I'm great.
Coach, talk about last week's game as you rolled up 371 yards of offense as your kicker, special teams, and defense also came through in the clutch.
Well, it was my first time being a part of a football game where we won and didn't score an offensive touchdown. But, you know, it's a win, and we'll take it. They're hard to come by, so anytime you can get one, you need to take it and celebrate and then move on and get ready for the next one.
One thing I noticed in preparation is your quarterback, Larry Brim, is coming off his second highest passing output of the season against the number 8 ranked defense in the nation in South Carolina State. This week you played number 3 ranked defense in North Carolina A&T State, and based on his performance against South Carolina State and what he did last year against the Aggies in the second half, could you just talk about, is he peaking at the right time?
Well, I think he is. You know, Larry's who he is. Larry's a good quarterback. He's a student of the game. You know, he's a young man that takes his role very seriously. And I think, you know, he had to shake off a little bit of rust and a little bit of trying to take on, you know, the whole offense by himself the first part of the season. Now he's settling in a little bit, and I think, you know, he's coming into his own.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to ask a question, press 1-4 on your telephone. Our question comes from the line of Donald Ware with Box to Row. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Coach Sims. How are you?
Good morning, Donald. How are you?
Doing good. You guys have won 2 straight games. What's the difference with respect to the way you're playing now as opposed to maybe the previous 2 games?
Well, I think we're just settling in, and, you know, we had a couple of new guys on our defense that we were trying to get into place, and now they're kind of understanding what we need and what we're looking for from them. And I think our guys are just, they're focusing in and not going out, pressing too hard, trying to make things happen. They're just playing within the frame of our offense and our defense and doing what they're taught to do.
Can you take us through the very last drive by South Carolina State? I mean, I'm looking at the play-by-play, and you guys, I guess, ultimately blocked the field goal that ended the game. But what previous to that, was there a penalty where you also blocked the field goal?
Yeah, what happened, we blocked the first field goal, and they had 2 fouls. We had a live ball foul. They flagged us for leaping, and they flagged them with a dead ball foul. It was sideline interference. So they had to re-kick it. They suggested that they made the determination we re-kicked the field goal, and we went out and blocked the second one. And that was the one that ended the football game.
Yeah, can you kind of talk about, as you've seen it on film now, who blocked it, what happened, what allowed for that to happen a second time? Because that's sort of unusual.
It is. It's very unusual. We just noticed that they had a guy that, you know, was kind of not really protecting his gap, and we saw it on film, and that's where we put 2 of our defensive tackles, and those guys force the issue and press the gap. And we had one of our defensive ends just shoot the gap. Delwan Beard, he actually came up with that second block to seal the deal and win the football game.
With respect to Uriel Hernandez, you mentioned he kicking the 4 field goals. Prior to what essentially was the game winner, he had missed a 20-yarder. Kind of what happened on the miss, and what did you guys say to him to make sure he had the confidence to be able to make, ultimately what was the game winner?
Well, Uriel is one of the best kickers I've been around, and he aligned a little bit off. He and our holder both, they were a little bit off the mark on that the one he missed. I really didn't say a whole lot to him. I just told him, I said, you're going to have to come back and kick a couple more of these. And he knew he would have to. And he has a lot of confidence. He didn't let that one get him down. And I think, the rest of our guys on our sideline, they kept him up and kept his spirits up. And he stayed focused, and he went out and did just that. He had to kick 2 more field goals to win the football game for us.
And then lastly, I know you touched on A&T a little bit. Can you speak maybe more specifically to some of the concerns you have about A&T?
The whole football team. I mean, when you pick a guy. They're a talented group. Coach Broadway and his staff, they do a great job with those guys. They're disciplined. You can tell they're well coached, and they don't make mistakes. When you watch these guys play, they're not going to do a whole lot, but what they do it very well, and they capitalize on the mistakes of their opponents, and that's what good football teams do. So when you say someone I'm concerned about, I mean, you definitely have to be concerned about the quarterback because he can extend plays with his legs, and he definitely can throw the football. He can manage the game, and they definitely have a group of receivers that can go and catch the football. And when you look at their defense, those guys they have a lot of turnovers, and they create a lot of turnovers by swarming to the football. They run to the football very well, and they make sure that they have hats around the ball, whether it's a pass or a run. So you have a lot of concerns when you play a football team like this. You just have to make sure that you're on your A game and that you play a mistake-free game and as penalty-free as possible.
Thank you, Coach Sims.
Our next question comes from the line of Luke Williams with a Black College Sport Page. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, Coach Sims. Good morning.
Good morning, Luke.
What do you take from your previous games against them? I talked to Coach Broadway. I know Graham has played well, passed for a lot of yards. Coach Broadway said he was even on fire last year down at your place. And I think 2 years ago up here, he came in, I think, in relief and marched up and down the field, even though you didn't get the win. What did you take from those 2 games, if anything, that is related to this game?
Well, I mean, just as I said earlier about Larry's a student of the game. He's going to come in and not just rely on a little bit of watching film and the meetings to watch film. He watches film, he dissects the film, he makes sure that he knows his opponent. So he's able to do a good job when he goes out and plays defense. So I think him being successful the last 2 years against them is just him preparing. He prepares very well, and he wants to do a good job when he steps on the field. So I see him doing the same thing now. He's watching film, he's preparing, and hopefully it carries over on Saturday.
You have a chance, Coach, obviously, to have a big say-so in the championship because you still have to play Central, who is undefeated. You still got to play, as you're doing this Saturday, you're playing A&T. What's the mentality? What's the message you give to your team this week in terms of your chances to still get into the championship race?
Well, I don't think I have to say a whole lot. I mean, the picture's clear, and we understand what we have to do. We have to go out and win football games, but we can only win one at a time. So right now we're focusing on A&T, and that's the task at hand, and that's the business that's in front of us, and that's what we're going to attack. We're going to attack this one first and take care of this, and let the chips fall where they may, and we'll worry about the next team the next week. But the race, I think, is still wide open for a number of people, and a lot of it will be decided with the games that are played this weekend. But in this conference, it always goes down to the final couple weeks to you decide, or until they'll be able to decide what will be playing for the championship. So I don't think you can look at it this early, because teams can lose, and I think until you have more than 2 losses in this conference, you're not out.
Now, when you look back over your team's play this week, what did you like about how you competed against, other than coming out with the win? What did you like about how you competed against South Carolina State?
Well, I think our defense, they finally showed up, and they played like the defense that we knew they could be. We swarmed the football, we covered well, and we were gap sound. So we finally put a lot of it together this weekend and played a pretty good football game defensively. And offensively, we just didn't finish. We moved the ball, we just couldn't put the ball in the box at the end. But I think on special teams and defense and offense, the most thing that I can say I'm proud of, the guys didn't quit. They continue to play. They continue to go out and do the things that they're coached to do, and that's what you want to do. You want to see them playing with energy, and you want to see them trying to execute and do the things that they're taught to do during the week.
We are now joined by Delaware State head coach Kenny Carter. Delaware State fell to Howard last week and remains at home to host South Carolina State this weekend. Good morning, Coach.
Morning, Ryan.
Coach, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, Coach. Last week, the Hornets had 500-plus yards of total offense. Was that the breakout performance you've been waiting on all season?
It was solid, but we still left 2 touchdowns on the field. We had a wide open guy on a pump screen that was wide open. We dropped another opportunity, and we got down to the safety several times, and with opportunities to have bigger runs that could have turned into different scoring opportunities. So, it looks good on paper, but we're still missing opportunities to give you a chance to win games.
And this week, you face a South Carolina State team that's coming to town, and they have as of now, the number 8 ranked defense in the country. And also, like you said earlier, with your offense having some success, is this the perfect time for them to showcase their consistency?
Well, definitely. South Carolina State has always been really good on defense, and they got big guys in their front. Their linebackers are really good. Their secondary covers really well. We have to take care of business and be smart, cut down the plays that we're running, and make sure that we're sound and things that we want to do in the run game, and take advantage of our receivers getting better and our quarterbacks getting better, being able to get the ball down the field.
And speaking of your receivers getting better, you had a freshman, Trey Gross, set a Delaware State University receiving record. Just talk about who is he and what led to him having such a good game last week.
Well, Trey's actually a walk-on. He's a young man that came to us towards the end of the summer, and it just worked out, and we loved the skill set that he brought to us, and we just kept developing him, and it was time to give him an opportunity to show what he could do, and he did exactly in the game what he's been doing in practice. So we're very, very proud of him, and he won't be a walk-on for long, but we're excited about his future and the things that he'll bring to the table.
Coach, also talk about another freshman that had a strong game in Alex Lozano, as he had 2 sacks last week.
Alex is a young man from New Jersey that we felt like coming into the season was going to be very productive for us. He's going to continue to get better. He's an outside linebacker that's got a lot of skill, can run, is good in coverage. He's just going to get better. We're just all of our plays are coming from our freshmen, and our sophomores are being solid, but we're so beat up, and
speaking of having to play so many young players, what is their mindset in terms of addressing each and every game? Do they look back and try to reflect on what's been happening throughout the season, or they put the last game behind them and focus surely on the task at hand for that upcoming week?
Well, really, when you look at everything, we just show them specifically why we lose a game, and they see it. You know, it'd be one thing if it was schemed. It'd be one thing if we weren't good enough physically. It has nothing to do with all that. I mean, you can see as you watch film from year to year to year the improvement in physicality, the improvement in athletic ability, and the improvement of the team. You know, when you have missed tackles and you drop coverage twice, which basically is the difference in the game, and I'll tell you about the two opportunities that we missed. I mean, that's just missed opportunities. I mean, heck, we drive, we're getting ready to go in at halftime with a 7-point lead, and we end up turning the ball over because of just two simple mistakes. You know, so those are the things that in this league you can't make little mistakes like that. They turn into big opportunities for any opponent that you can play on any given Saturday. So you know they see it, and they understand what's going on. You know, like I said, the injury bug. We've lost 3 starting linemen for the year and a starting tailback. So and starting the Mike and a starting inside linebacker. So when you have all that happen to you, you have to deal with the adversity, and your kids just have to keep pushing them forward.
And also talk about the play. Quarterback Keenan Blackie's came on the last few weeks, and he had 2 touchdowns last week. And also your other quarterback Jack McDaniels had 191 yards passing and was 13 of 20 and also a touchdown. So just talk about both of their development and play as the season progresses.
Right. Well, we just decided that we were going to play both of them. They're very much alike. They have a couple different skill sets that work, but just little things of trying to be detailed and taking coaching, and you know, both those guys are doing that. So we're really excited about their development, and we're just going to continue to play both of them.
And once again, talk about South Carolina State, as we all know what they do on the defensive side of the ball in terms of how they fly to the ball. But talk about what have you seen from them offensively that you could try to take advantage of this week in a general scheme?
I don't know about taking advantage of. I mean, it's a matter of they're just trying to find their identity and do what it is that they do. You know, South Carolina State always going to try to run the ball, and you know, they have a lot of option things that they do, a lot of zone scheme things that they do, zone read things that they do. You know, you just have to make sure that you're gap sound and you take advantage of when you can pressure them. You know, try to pressure them and make sure you contain the football. You know, we just want to play gap sound defense and make sure that we tackle people and get people on the ground. And that's the thing that's really killing us more than anything right now. We have to tackle better at safety, and if we can get that solidified, we'll be okay.
We will now head to Washington, D.C. for our next call as first-year Howard University head coach Mike London now joins us. The Bison defeated Delaware State this past weekend and will return home for homecoming to host Morgan State on Saturday. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
We're fine. Coach, just talk about last week's game, as there was 1,000 yards of offense between both teams. And just talk about how your team battled back with an impressive second half after a tight first half.
Yeah, you know, it was a game that involved a lot of turnovers and a lot of situations that you know, opportunities. You know, we made a lot of opportunities work for us, and they had some, and you know, made some opportunities happen for them. But we had more opportunities that resulted in big plays for us. You know, 5 sacks, a couple turnovers, we were able to score. You know, 35, you know, second half points of the 60 guys that traveled, about 58 played. So, you know, it's just one of those things. 18 freshmen played in the game. It's just one of those games that was tight in the first half. You know, and they were actually getting ready to go in and score before the half. And one of my guys, you know, Eli Angelin, scooped up an errant pitch on the option play and ran it back 96 yards, you know, for a touchdown. So, Delaware State played very hard. It was their homecoming, and they showed a lot of grit, determination in the first half, very competitive, and then the second half we just kind of regrouped and were able to kind of put some long drives together, some explosive plays. We hit them on some screens. We threw the ball down the field, had some explosive plays, for about almost 500 yards of that. So, it's hard to win football games. Everybody in this league is competitive, and you feel very fortunate to come out with a victory. And now we're getting ready for our homecoming against Morgan State. So back to practices and meetings and getting ready for the next opponent.
And speaking of homecoming, based on your past history as a coach, how do you handle your preparation in terms of balancing the players, their enjoyment of the festivities, but also understanding that this is a big game also?
Yeah, definitely. You want to try to control the controllables. I mean, there's some things that you can control. There's other things that that you can't. And we talk about the distractions and not letting things get in front of us. Just take care of the things that that we're supposed to, and that's how we practice, how we execute, and the things that are going to matter on the field between the white lines. So it's we had a pep rally yesterday, and all those things happen when your homecomings are about to be played and all the events that lead up to it. But there's some things that we'll do. We'll get away, away from campus here a little bit towards the latter part of the week, and try to do some things that make sure we're focused. We're trying to win another football game, and our goals are still very much attainable if we take care of business on Saturday.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you wish to register a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. And we have a question. Our question comes from the line of Trevin Jones with Howard University Radio. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Coach. How you doing this morning?
Doing great, Trevin. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Hey, Coach, just one question for you. Is the vibe, the feeling around the football team, with them being successful and doing what they're doing so far this season, do you notice a change in the environment on the campus and around the program?
Well, yes, is the short answer. Yesterday at the pep rally, it was an unbelievable energy by the students and the things that went on. Our players are out there, and we just talked about we can't do this by ourselves. I mean, we need everybody. The fans, the students, stakeholders, the university. And we know that that a lot of people will be here in D.C. On Saturday. So as we talked about, it's kind of a mission possible attitude for this group. Very proud of them. Very resilient. But there is a difference. There's a change in the culture and the expectations, and we want that. We have to crave that. It doesn't feel good when you lose games. It feels good when you win games. But the journey to try to get those feelings and the opportunities are always met with a lot of hard work. And I would say that this season, starting from summer, going to summer school, strength coach, nutrition, just all those things is kind of played into an opportunity to be competitive in all the games we've played in thus far.
Awesome. And Coach, the reason I even asked that question, you mentioned it's a mission possible theme. It seems like that's permeating, even from the program throughout everybody, and everybody is coming in contact with the program at this point in the season. Again, to me, faith, family, and football are things that are important to me, and all things, are possible. And so, we all probably have been in situations where people tell you can't do something, and I'm a glass half filled kind of guy anyway, so I look for the positive in a lot of things. So we just talk about the things that can be done, that we can control. That's our effort, our energy, and then let everything else, come as it does. But it's a mindset. We want to continue to keep creating that, and it's great to have. Like I said, I can't even describe the feeling yesterday, last night, with the student body that was in the gymnasium, and just all that energy that was going on there. So we want to capture that and that momentum and just keep it going. So very look forward to the preparation for this week, and then obviously for the game on Saturday against Morgan State, who's, I tell you what, they are an athletic, really good team that's played a lot of good teams. They may not have won, those games, but they played well in in showing some of the the quarterback and the receivers, running back, defensive linemen that they run around really well. So our focus is not as much as on the distractions of what's coming, but making sure that we take care of ourselves, to get ready for this game.
And my last question, Coach, and forgive me, I got into the teleconference late. You may have already spoken about it. The quarterback, Ely, I believe he's 6'7", transfer from Mississippi State. Did you talk about him earlier? And if you haven't, can you just comment on him and what you've seen of him?
Well, I mentioned, we always talk about the who and the what on the other team, and he's definitely the who and the what. I mean, he's a guy that's 6'7", 245. He's thrown 4 touchdowns. He's thrown 10 interceptions, but he's thrown for over 1,000 yards. He's a big guy that has a strong arm and that can make all the throws. I mean, the short throws, long throws, intermediate throws. Got touch on his passes. He runs screens. So he does a lot of great things for him. He's the guy. He's the guy. And he's distributing the ball to receivers and running backs. So we're gonna have to make sure our rush lanes and things like that are in place here, because he really he's a straw that stirs the drink for them.
Appreciate you, Coach, and good luck this weekend. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Our next question comes from the line of Luke Williams with Black College Sports Page. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, Coach London, I thought at the beginning of the season you kind of signaled to us when you said that Caleb Newton was a whole lot better than you thought he was. If some of I saw the game, I was for the game against Central. I was impressed with his poise and athletic ability. If some of that comes from growing up in I guess what some would call a football family, and what have you had to most work on to get him to the point that he is now?
Well, thanks for the question. Obviously, he comes from a football family, and there's a vast amount of, when I say resource, I mean, he can pick up a phone and call his brother, and that's about as good as there is,
Right.
But he's had to grow and mature as a quarterback. As you recall, the Central game, there was a big play at the goal line, and he got up. He didn't say anything, but he gave, let's just say he got called for a penalty and kind of moved us back. It happened again where he got a big hit on him in the game. He was able to pitch the ball, and our runner scored a touchdown on it. But when it happened again, he didn't say anything. He just got up and started running to the sideline. So there's a growth and maturity part that you only get as the season goes on and as those situations present themselves again. So there was another one that was presented. He had the opportunity to to showboat or whatever it is. He just got up and ran off to the sideline and celebrated with his teammates. And so there's a level of growth and maturity, that he's shown based on his experiences. And that's, as I said last week, the good thing about a freshman, he's a freshman. But the bad thing about a freshman, he's a freshman.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that he's growing and maturing in that will make him a better football player as the season goes on and into his career.
And this is the last question for you, Coach. It's kind of strange when you have a freshman that's leading your team, but has he adopted that mantle even at this young stage of his career?
I believe the confidence is gained through demonstrated performance, and so our guys see him, have 81 yards rushing and almost 300 yards passing. Getting the ball down the field to some receivers, that particularly a guy like Kyle Anthony, who's really been on the, had a sore ankle for the last couple of weeks, but Kyle came into his own, had 130 plus yards receiving and a touchdown. So, Kalen is being able to distribute the ball, run it, can throw it, and get it to our playmakers, and he's earned a measured amount of respect from his teammates. So he's not braggadocious. It's just by competing. He's a competitor, and that's what our guys respect.
We are now joined by Norfolk State University head coach Latrell Scott. The Spartans fell to Hampton this past weekend in the annual Battle of the Bay and will return to action this Saturday to face North Carolina Central. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan.
Coach, just talk about last week's game as you battled back from an early deficit, but for the second straight week, your team put themselves in position to possibly win the game down the stretch. Talk about your team's will based on the past performance.
Well, you have to appreciate the way the guys tried to finish the game. You know, there were some factors during the game, some caused by Hampton, some caused by us, that didn't give us the opportunity to win. And, you know, at the end of the day, you can't put yourself in a situation where the game comes down to one play. And it did, and we were unsuccessful.
And also talk about Marcus Taylor. He had a solid game last week with 2 touchdowns, and he's shown the ability so far this season to stretch the field. How much has he grown as a wide receiver since you've been able to coach him?
Well, Marcus has probably been a 3-year starter for us. He started a lot of games his freshman year, and started every game as a sophomore, and definitely started every game as a junior. And you know, the thing that we have now is we have a quarterback that can get him the ball on a regular basis. You know, we design a lot of things to try to get him touches, and when we do get him touches, he's able to be productive after the catch. The other thing that he's given us is you know, a lot of hidden yardage in the return game. You know, I can't say enough about what he brings to our team offensively. We'll just try to continue to do what we need to do to get him the football.
And also, since you arrived at Norfolk 2 seasons ago, 11 points is what separates you from defeating North Carolina Central. Just talk about Central from what you've been able to see so far in preparation.
Well, you know, Jerry does a tremendous job down at Central, and I don't know that he has the offensive talent that he's had in years past. Not taking anything away from him, but they have a top-notch defense. You know, another front seven again this week that will get after you. And I think he's got 9 seniors playing on defense. Those guys have been around for a long time, and what they've proven is that they may not play as well as they you know, they may not be playing as well as he would like from them to play, but they're finding ways to win close ball games, and that's the mark of a good football team.
And is Central pretty much a mirror image of Norfolk, meaning both of y'all have young quarterbacks and a young offense, but you have defenses that's proven to rise to the ability when time calls for them?
Well, you know, I don't know if we're mirrors because they're undefeated in the conference, but obviously we both do have freshman quarterbacks, and we're being led by our defenses, and you know, it's just going to come down to, you know, who can make the plays that it takes, you know, to win football games. You know, the other thing that we've got to do here in Norfolk State is we've got to play better on special teams. You know, special teams really cost us this past week, and Central's, you know, pretty solid on special teams usually.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to register a question, 14 on your telephone. Our question comes from the line of Ty Miller with SBN Sports. Please proceed with your question.
Coach Scott, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Ty.
Coach, can you talk more about Chauncey Caldwell? I mean, you have a freshman quarterback, and so does Coach Mack down at Central, as you just mentioned. Can you talk more about him and how he has improved on tape from what you've seen and how he doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes?
Well, you know, I saw him come in against Florida A&M. I was watching the game on television, and you could just see his confidence grow. I think Jerry probably ran the ball 6 or 7 straight times, and if I'm not mistaken, his very first throw was a touchdown. So, obviously, you know, he's got some talent. He's definitely got size and athletic ability, and, you know, when you can win games in this league as a true freshman, you have a ton of potential.
Coach, also, can you speak on the fact that Central, like most good teams, they don't beat themselves, they don't turn the ball over, and they also capitalize on mistakes by the other team?
You know, I think that's a mark of a veteran ball club. You know, even though they have young players on offense, it's a veteran team. It's a team that has you know, a ton of leadership, and you know, they're the defending champions. So obviously, they've got a model and a process that other people are looking to follow.
And your team, Coach, can you speak about how much they're looking forward to the challenge of taking on a top-notch team like Central again?
You know, we play our schedule, and obviously, you know, we want to play the best. We think we played a very
good football team a week ago, and we think we play good football teams every week in the MEAC. Some people seem to think that that they're non-competitive teams in the MEAC, but I don't think any of us coaches look at it that way. Central, they're the defending champs, and it's an opportunity for us to go Central and put our team up this week after a tough loss last week to see how we bounce back.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
We have no further questions at this time.
Coach Scott, could you talk about, compared to when the season started, just talk about the growth of your team from a mental and physical standpoint?
Well, they grow up each week. As I said, the guys are tough and resilient, and when you're seconds away from thinking that you have the ability to go 3-0 in the league and you don't, it does something to you. So what we had to do as coaches to make sure that we got the guys back in here Sunday and ready to go, and when we hit the practice field this afternoon, we're focused. But there's a lot of football left to be played in the MEAC, and we're 2-1 in the league, so we're still very optimistic.
And speaking of your defense, last week you had another solid outing defensively, as you pretty much made the adjustments and kept Hampton in check during the second half. You just talk about outside of the usual names and Kyle Archie, Chris Lee, and now Chavis, who else has been able to rise to the occasion and play at a high level?
Well, it's usually the usual suspects. Obviously you have to give Coach Maynor's team credit for coming out the first drive of the game, and they just drove the ball right down the field all of a sudden, and we can't allow that to happen. But Chris and Nigel and Kyle Archie, Aaron Smith is playing very well for us at inside linebacker. J.T. Watt, he's done a very nice job for us at corner, as is Aaron Chandler. So it's a group effort, led by the usual suspects. We do have some guys that are coming off the bench giving us some production. So we'll just continue to play as hard as we can play on defense and get this offense to a point where we can help those guys on a weekly basis.
And lastly, you mentioned the growth of Jawan each and every week. In terms of your running back play, has there been one person you're pretty much going to rely on, or is this going to be a team effort from this point?
Well, Ryan, we've got to find a guy that can, get us more than what the play is blocked for. That's something that we've talked about the last couple of days. Our offensive line takes a beating week in and week out because of our rushing numbers, and when you turn the tape on, you see if the play's blocked for 3, that's what we get. If there's another cut or another move that a guy can make and make the defender miss, that definitely helps your run game total. So we've just got to continue to find our niche at running back. We've got 2 of our top 3 backs are true freshmen, so we'll just keep on continuing to play those 2 guys along with Aaron Savage until one of the guys takes the lead.
We are now joined by 4th-year Hampton University head coach Connell Maynor. Hampton earned a big win over Norfolk State in the Battle of the Bay last week to remain undefeated in conference play, and they will host Florida A&M for homecoming on Saturday. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm fine. Yourself?
Good.
Coach, talk about the Battle of the Bay last weekend. You jumped out to an early lead, but had to hold on to pick up the big win last week.
Yeah, we got to a great start. We don't have a problem, it seems like, to get off to fast starts. We have a problem with maintaining it and playing with the same intensity for 4 quarters, 60 minutes. We can get off to a good start, man, but we got to keep it going and continue doing the things that we did to get off to a good start offensively and defensively. And we did it for most of the game. Defensively, 10 minutes left in the game is 16-7. And then we kind of gave us some plays. But I was proud of the guys. It was, Battle of the Bay and rivalry week. And, these guys go to the same barbershops and churches and parties and try to get the same girls and played against each other in high school. Now they're playing against each other again in college and grew up together. So it was a very emotional game for these guys on both sides, and we were just glad to get the bear off our back. They beat us the last 3 years, so we wanted to get that. But more importantly, we want to stay undefeated in the conference.
And speaking of staying undefeated, you face a Florida A&M team that's pretty dangerous, as they've been on the cusp of winning several games the past few weeks. Just talk about the Rattlers from what you've been able to see so far on tape.
Well, so far, from what I've seen on tape, it's probably the second best team we played all year. And that first team being Ohio. No disrespect for nobody else we played. Norfolk got a great team. But I just think FAMU has a better team, and we got to play better than we played last week if we want to win here at homecoming. They beat us up to their place last year on their homecoming, so it would be great if we could return the favor this year on our homecoming. But we got to play well in all three phases of the game, no doubt about it. FAMU got an excellent football team. Coach Wood is doing an excellent job. Those guys prepared. They play hard. Got a great defense. That offense can score points, and they're dangerous in the kick game. So we got to be on point. We have to be on point, Ryan.
And speaking of homecoming, as a coach, how do you handle the outside activities in terms of letting your players participate in those, while understanding that the purpose of homecoming also is the football game also?
Yeah, Ryan, we're gonna give them. We gave them yesterday and today, which not a lot of stuff going on the first 2 days, and then they got to start back getting focused. Wednesday they can't go to anything Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and actually I'm gonna take them off. We'll start practicing Friday afternoon at noon, and then we're gonna go to the hotel right after that. So I'm gonna get them off campus as soon as I can Friday, and the guys that do stay on campus, I'm gonna show them a movie and get those guys away from everybody else. So we're gonna try to control that environment as much as possible to stay focused, to understand that our job is to win the football game.
Coach, I'm going to ask you about Yaki Johnson. He's beginning to settle in as a lead back. Had 115 yards, 2 touchdowns last week. What has he done to prepare himself for the rigors of being the every down back, especially in key situations?
He's a workaholic. Busts his butt in the weight room. He's first when we run. He's just a little fireball, man, and he's the spark plug of our offense and our team. And he's just tough. He's tough as nails. But he didn't. Shaw McKenzie had 2 touchdowns. Yaki didn't score last week, but he did have 115 yards. So we kind of hit him with the little fire and ice, and big back, little back, and that's kind of how we want to do things, the way we did it against Norfolk with the big back and the small back, and kind of wear them down and just keep going at them with those 2 guys.
And then also talk about the player, your quarterback last week. He managed the game, kept you in it, and basically he's growing up each week. So just talk about his development, especially during a big game where by him being from this area.
Say that again, Ryan.
Well, talk about the player, your quarterback, by him being from this area. I know this was a big game for him. So just talk about him managing the game and putting y'all in position to win.
Right. Dale, it was a big game for him. He's from Lake Taylor right over there, and he had a lot of people at the game and knew a lot of guys on both sides, and still know high school guys that's playing now. So it was a real big game for him, and I thought he played well. We didn't ask him to do a whole lot, early. He played well early. We got a lead, and then, we knew that Norfolk State leads FCS and points scored off of with the defense, and so we didn't want to take too many chances with those guys because they turn you over and they score with it, and they helped them beat us last year at our place. We threw a pick on a screenplay, and they took it back to the house, and so we didn't want to do anything like that. So Dale played great. He did everything we asked him to do, and we kind of took the air out of the ball a little bit in the second half, trying to limit their possessions and get that game over with because they had a dangerous defense that can make a big play at any time, and we didn't want to give them a momentum switch or anything like that to get those guys going, get them fired up at their place. And so he did exactly what we asked him to do. We didn't ask him to do a lot, but he managed the game and did enough to win the game.
And speaking of dangerous defense, your defense pretty much had a good game last week. And one thing I noticed watching them, they're spirited and fly to the ball. Just talk about their mindset as a whole as they play at a high level of intensity.
They do, and to have a great defense, you got to do that. You got to fly around. You got to try to get all 11 guys to the football, and you got to have fun. And that's what those guys are doing. They flying around, they having fun, they making plays, and as long as you do that, defense is gonna fly around. That's not only our defense; that's all great defenses. South Carolina State's do it, A&T's do it, Norfolk's do it, Savannah's do it. So when those guys are making plays, flying around, they just having fun. That's what they do. So you got to try to get them on their heels, man. You got to get them on their heels and keep them guessing, and not let them make big plays and keep those guys flat, because once they get the momentum, it's hard to stop those great defenses.
And my second to last question is, I've had a chance to watch Ronald Bell. Just talk about him and how does he complement all the night at the receiver. They're not the biggest guys, but they play big. So just talk about their play and their development overall.
Bell is ready and capable and just waiting for his opportunities. We're going to try to read the defense, take what they give us, but Ronald is dangerous. He definitely can run with the ball after he catch it, and he run great routes, and he got speed. So he's a tough little guy for us, and like you say, he used to be a running back, and he's made the switch, and now he's a great route runner, and still need to work on his hands a little bit, but he's very dangerous once he get the ball in his hand, and he's he's right there. If they want to double Knight or try to take Knight out of the game, Bill can have a big day, and then we still got Wolford and Chase Powell. So all those guys are complementary to each other, and Bill is doing an excellent job for us. I don't think people saw it, but some people might have saw it. The first play of the game, we threw the go route down the sideline tonight. Ronald Bell was running right down the middle of the football field wide open. So Williams missed him on that, but it is what it is.
And Coach, on a lighter note, and my last question, I've been around the team and Jay Walker go at it about who was a better quarterback when y'all were in college. And without saying why, I'm going to go with you, Coach, because I saw 4.3 speed from you at the end of the game. So I know the post-game report said you were under the weather, so we just want to know how you're doing and, as you prepare for practice this week.
I'm doing fine, Ryan. I just had some migraines, and first time ever I ever had migraines on the sideline or in my life period. So I don't know. They say it's because I changed my diet, and I went with no sweets and no sodas, and kind of changed my diet last week. And they say that could very easily cause it 3 or 4 days after you start. And I started it Monday, so that's probably what it was. Changing my diet. I'm trying to get like Buddy and lose a couple pounds, and backfired on me. I ain't as young as I used to be. But, Jay ran a 4.3 too, but he ran it in a 10, and I ran it in a 40.
We're now joined by our 7th head coach in Savannah State's Erik Raeburn. The Tigers fell to Morgan State last week and will step out of MEAC play for a contest at Charleston Southern this Saturday at 6 p.m. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning.
Coach, recap last week's game at Morgan State and just talk about some of the things that stood out to you.
Yeah, obviously we've kind of struggled all year on the offensive side of the ball, but I thought we would play. We've been playing better defensively and on special teams, but that wasn't the case on Saturday. So that was disappointing. I thought we played our maybe our poorest game defensively of the year, and certainly our poorest on special teams. So that was it was disappointing for sure. I thought we'd make more of a game of it.
And this week you head to Charleston Southern for a non-conference contest. Looking at Charleston Southern, they've had some different results, low-scoring games, and things like that. And some of them have been on the winning side, some on the losing side. But just talk about what they bring to the table and how do you match up against them?
Yeah, they've been fantastic on defense. If you take out their 2 FBS games that they played against Indiana and Mississippi State, defensively they've only given up 24 points the rest of the season when they've played FCS opponents. So they'll be really difficult tests for us. And on the offensive side of the ball, they run the option and do a great job. Excellent running back, and their quarterbacks can run, and then they're talented at receiver. So when when they hit those play action throws, they get a lot of one-on-one coverage, and the quarterbacks and receivers do a great job of taking advantage. So it'll be a tough test, but obviously we're looking forward to getting back out there after the disappointing showing this past week.
And speaking of last week's game, without pretty much going too much into detail, your team battled back in the second half as they scored 21 points. And specifically, you came out the locker room and scored a touchdown. So just talk about their will and their desire to not quit.
Yeah, obviously we're disappointed that we haven't won any games, but we haven't been disappointed in the effort that we've gotten out of our players. We feel like they're practicing hard. They're playing hard. It's just we're making too many mistakes, and then not making some of the plays when we're in position to make them. So, but we've never been frustrated with the effort that we're getting.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you'd like to register a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. And we're showing no questions on the audio lines at this time.
Coach, after 6 games, talk about your team's growth, even though you may not have get the desired wins you wanted, but just talk about their growth despite his youth and some of the things he had to overcome throughout the season.
Yeah, I think our young guys are getting better, but it's just we're going to be a little inconsistent for sure. We lost our starting quarterback with a broken leg in the App State game, and put a true freshman in there. And when you have a young offensive line and a true freshman at quarterback, that's a difficult combination. But I think all those guys are getting better, and I know they're giving great effort and working hard, watching film, practicing, working on their technique. But certainly we just haven't played well enough to get a victory.
And Charleston Southern, I know they run a different type of offense that you probably normally prepared for the past few weeks. Talk about in the middle of the season trying to adjust to this style of offense, and as opposed to trying to defend a mainly spread offenses.
Yeah. Offensively, they're very unique, and you don't play this type of option very often. In our conference, no one really runs it, but so it'll be a challenge for us in the middle of the season to kind of get ready for them. But there's been some teams that have done a great job of defending their option plays, and so we can, our guys, when we turn on film, you can see some teams doing a great job of defending all the different looks that Charleston Southern presents. So, hopefully, our guys will be able to replicate that on Saturday.
And lastly, let's talk about Stephen Banks had 10 tackles last week and was projected to be one of your defensive leaders this year. And so far, he's third on the team in tackles. Let's talk about his games last week and what you'd like to see from him at this point.
He's given us everything he could give us, and done everything we've asked of him. Just the example that he sets for all of our younger guys in terms of how hard he practices and then how hard he plays. Is making a big impact in our program, I think. So, every week he's kind of been the guy for us. Definitely the most productive guy in our front seven. But Saturday he played. He turned it up another notch. Even he was incredibly disruptive. We just felt like we just felt like we weren't getting enough. We weren't getting off enough blocks around him to help out. But it felt like if he didn't make the tackle, it was a big play against us. So we got to get more effort like him and get more guys to the football like he always seems to do. But man, he's been fantastic for us for sure.
Our next call takes us to Orangeburg, South Carolina, as we welcome in head coach Buddy Pough of South Carolina State. The Bulldogs fell to Bethune-Cookman 12-9 last week and will head north to Dover, Delaware to face Delaware State on Saturday. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm fine. How you doing, Coach?
I'm okay.
Coach, can you recap last week's contest versus Bethune-Cookman as the contest pretty much came down to a field goal?
Yeah, we were in I guess maybe a defensive slugfest against Bethune this past Saturday. I don't know whether we were both playing that good on defense or playing poor on offense, but we ended up in a 9-9 tie at the end of the first half. We come out the second half and don't score. They score a field goal. We get it down close enough to try to attempt a field goal to tie it up at the end. And, of course, they blocked the field goal. So we ended up losing the game 12-9.
And this week you head north to Delaware State, and with their offense coming off a career game, what do you have to do defensively in order to keep them from being successful on offense once again?
You're right. Dell's starting to play better. You can see the improvement on both sides of the ball from them. Of course, Howard did beat them up last week, and Howard's probably playing maybe the best of any of the teams on the side at this point. But they've shown themselves able to be able to stop almost everybody they played, and even with some of the Division I bowl championship teams they played, it was a situation where, they weren't overmatched in any way. So, Delaware's got, I think, a lot of incentive with us coming in there, kind of limping around a little bit to try to see if they can break their streak that way. So, we've got to really be on our P's and Q's to see if we can get in there and get them shut down.
And, Coach, one name outside of Darius Leonard that's been that stood out a lot this year is Deshaun Taylor. They're talking about his style of play and how does he complement Leonard at linebacker?
Well, Darius is the more downhill of the two linebackers. He's more of an aggressive guy. He's a little bit bigger guy. He's a 6, maybe foot, 5'11", 240-pound guy that still runs pretty good. And, he's continued to compliment Darius, as the, running mate there side by side in a way where I think they kind of feed off each other. He's been able to play pretty good in the pass defense game, too. He had an interception a couple weeks ago against Morgan State in a pretty critical situation. And, he's been, I guess, maybe similar in the way that he makes big plays to Darius.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you'd like to register a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone keypad. And we're showing no questions at this time.
Thank you.
Coach Pough, just talk about the season in terms of the close games. What is your tactic, or how do you challenge your team to approach each game without even worrying about what took place the previous weekend?
Well, Ryan, that might be one of the more painful scenarios that you can imagine as far as going through a season such as this. We've lost now 4 games, and 3 of them have been on the road, pretty close games that way. And I don't know if you can imagine just how tough that is. So, I've got to actually take my hat off to our guys. We had practice this morning, and they continue to be upbeat and work hard. Have good practices, that kind of stuff. So, I can honestly say that that we talk about the fact that we've got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and be men about our situation. In ways that that you don't necessarily want to be when you're having these kinds of issues. But at the same time, I really can't complain about how our guys have continued to react, to our situation and how hard we've worked to try to overcome it.
And when you speak of the situation, is it partly due to just youth and experience and just expecting them to grow each and every week, or is other factors outside of that?
Well, I think it's got something to do with youth and inexperience. We lost to, a pretty decent Southern team on the road in the first game of the year. Central's 5-1. Those guys have played pretty good. A&T's undefeated. So we hadn't lost the chopped liver, in any shape, form, or fashion. Bethune's up and down in a way where, they can always, beat you, especially down there, in that heat. This is the same team that beat one of those directional Louisiana teams down in Louisiana during the hurricane season. So, the teams that we've lost to have all been pretty good football teams. We hadn't lost to a bad team. So, we just hadn't beaten a good team. Right now, we need a win against a good football team, and that's our goal. So, as we work toward, trying to finish this year out as best possible, we just kind of just look to the next team and just kind of keep going that way.
And like you said earlier, playing Delaware State, is that one of those games where if you look at the record, people kind of, especially when you talk about young players, can kind of not take some things serious, and then you realize it's a dogfight when the game starts?
Say it again?
Is playing Delaware State one of those games where you kind of got to tell your players don't look at the record and just focus on the game at hand?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the way it works. You can get yourself drawn into a trap of sorts by thinking that Dell is just going to lay down because they hadn't, had much success this year. But now, nothing should be further from the truth under the circumstances. The first thing is you don't want to necessarily be the first victim, and it's coming. Somebody's going to get beat right there, probably this year, right here. So, we need to really have a good plan going in there. We need to be on our P's and Q's because these guys can beat us, and we've shown ourselves vulnerable in a way where, we've got to find a way to make sure that we don't necessarily go in there and give them a football game.
And then also talk about Trey Sanders, your running back. Is he going to end up being your leading ground gainer in terms of productivity and lean on him in situations?
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be the case. He's starting to kind of distance himself from the rest of our running backs. We put a young in the running backs core, and he's one of the older guys. He's returning from ACL surgery from the previous year, and really just now getting back to full speed. He's still from time to time a little bit tender over that way. So we've got to be a little bit careful about how we go about using him, but at the same time, he has added a nice dimension to our offense in a way where, it looks like it gives us somewhat of a breakaway kind of a guy.
And lastly, one player I've always wanted to ask about, well, two in particular, because I see their performance each week is consistent, is Jason Baxter. Just talk about him, but also big Shaquille Crouch. Coach, what do you would like to see from Shaquille as time goes on at South Carolina State?
Well, Shaquille's a big behemoth kind of guy. He's, I guess, maybe somewhere north of the 350 range. He's 6'5", maybe 6'6", and he moves around pretty well. So, he's shown himself to be able to play, at a pretty high level. We try to rotate those guys around a good bit because sometimes this time of the year, down this time of the year, it's kind of warm down south. So we got to kind of work him in a way where we make sure that we keep an eye on his conditioning that way. And then Jason Baxter has been one of the mainstays in our secondary for a couple of years now. He's a graduate student here who's, handled himself in a way that he's a mature kind of effect he has a mature kind of effect on our defensive secondary. He kind of keeps them straight back there and makes sure that that they're not kind of getting down on themselves or that kind of stuff if they have an issue, and just kind of keep them playing hard the next play.
We're now joined by North Carolina A&T State head coach Rod Broadway. The Aggies defeated Florida A&M last week in Florida A&M's homecoming and will return home to host Bethune-Cookman in a contest that will be shown on ESPNU at 10:30 p.m. Saturday and live on ESPN3. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
I'm good, Ryan. I hope you are.
Yes, sir. I'm trying, Coach. Just recap last week's game as your team went into Florida A&M's homecoming and pulled out a tough win, which I know from your perspective they had to fight for it very hard.
Yeah, we did. We didn't play like we're capable of playing. For one, we had all kind of penalties, which is uncharacteristic of our football team. We had 3 turnovers, which is uncharacteristic of our football team, and I don't think we played very hard. But we were good enough to get out there with a win, which is the bottom line. But we got to make some improvement and get better. And we can't take days like that off, and we got to play every weekend. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't play harder or faster and made so many penalties before the play started, and we had penalties after the play was over, which is something we don't usually do around here. So we got to go to work and try to correct some things and try to get better this week. But you got to give FAM credit. They've gotten better, and they presented a lot of challenges for us. I think the quarterback threw the ball very well and made some plays with his feet, but we were able to hang in there and get back with a W.
And speaking of W's, this week your next task in order to get a W comes in the form of Bethune-Cookman. They're coming off an emotional win versus South Carolina State, and they've played a very good effort on both sides of the ball. Just talk about the Wildcats from what you've seen, and just talk about playing Bethune-Cookman overall.
Well, it's going to be a challenge. It always is when you play those guys. They have a good football team, and we've got to get ourselves ready to play. We can't play like we played last week and expect to beat Bethune because they were kick our butts. So, they've done a good job. The quarterback, of course, that sucker got hot on us last year and looked like, Aaron Rodgers out there. He was dropping dimes all over the place, and the receivers made some plays, and they put a lot of points on the board against us. So they've got some answers to some things that we do. So we've got to be a little bit better than we've been against those guys because they've exposed us in some areas.
And speaking of the quarterback, you basically ran into my next question. He, like you said, came on late against you all last year, but also he's coming off his second-best passing performance against South Carolina State of all teams. So just talk about his development, and by him being a redshirt senior, what problems could he possess if not contained?
Well, he, like I said, he dropped some dimes on us last year, and he threw some balls against South Carolina State. He can throw, and once he get in rhythm, he's dangerous. And not only that, he can also run the ball. He has good feet, and can make some plays with his feet. So we got to do a great job of standing in our lanes, trying to put pressure on him, and make him throw out of the hole. And hopefully he's not as sharp as he was last year against us because he was spectacular last year.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now take questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you'd like to register a question, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone keypad. Gentlemen, we're showing no questions at this time.
Coach, with the season heading into the critical stretch and obviously each game getting bigger and bigger, just talk about trying to get your team to not worry about what's going on outside and just focus on the game at hand. Because I know people are talking and they're reading stuff on social media. So just talk about your job as a coach to kind of understand that, this is just a 0-0 week to week.
Well, that's
It's a challenge, Ryan. One of the things that we've come to understand is that, and one of the things we put a lot of emphasis on is it's critical. Week 6, 7, and 8 can define what kind of football team you have. We're in week 8 now, so we need to go and play well. I think our guys understand that, and we need to make some improvements from what we did last week, eliminate some of the turnovers and penalties that we had last week, and just try to be a better football team this week and more focused than we were, because a lot of the pre-snap penalties I think are focus penalties, so we got to be tuned in and ready to play.
And you had a name last week that popped up in the stats, Najee Reams. Just talk about who is he and what led to his performance last week at Florida A&M.
Well, we lost about 3 safeties, and he's a guy that is a safety for us that can run. He's on the track team and he can fly. He's got to come up and feel better. He came up a couple of times last week and squatted, and if he come up and get in the alley on one play last week, we get a safety. But he's getting better. He's a freshman that can fly, but he's got to learn how to play a little bit better and come up and feel and run the alley better. But he's got a lot of tools, and I think it's a little bit. We expect a lot out of him, and we just need to get a couple of our safeties back, and so we can continue for him to grow on the sideline instead of on the field.
And one thing I've negated to ask this season is the development of Elijah Bell. He is in his second year. Is he turning into that big play receiver that you normally like to have your offense, similar to what Denzel Keys was last year?
This kid, he's had a good year. He's had a good year. He's a good player, and makes some catches for us and makes some big plays for us. I didn't think he played very hard this past weekend, which is unlike him, because there's some balls in the air that he just didn't fight like he normally fight for those things. So, again, that may be a lack of effort on his part and great defense on Fam's part, but we've seen him make some of those catches 1,000 times around here. So we got to get him playing a little harder. Well, our whole football team, I said earlier, I didn't think we played very hard down at Fam. I don't think we played very smart down at Fam. So we got to go back to work and get him playing faster and harder than what we played. And we got to make plays like that. But to answer your question, he's going to be outstanding before he gets out of here, because he's 6'3", he's 225 pounds, has great hands, adjusts to the ball really well, deceptive speed-wise. So he does a lot of good things for us.
And lastly, just talk about you're back at home this week, second time in 3 weeks, but you're on national television and you're against the quality opponent of Bethune-Cookman. So just talk about having that home atmosphere, and is it possible to recreate that same atmosphere you had 2 weeks ago in terms of the homecoming crowd?
No. That happens once a year. I wish we could. Actually, I wish we could have homecoming too around here, because they come out and support and get loud around here. But again, we got a great challenge coming here with Bethune-Cookman, and I think they've done an outstanding job. When you look at them on tape, they're a really good football team, offensively, defensively. Got some really good athletes, run well in the right spots, and they learn how to play, and they've gotten better. As you can see, as you watch tape week in and week out, you can see those guys getting better. So they posed a threat for us. I mean, a major threat. So we got to get ready to play and play one of our better games.
We will close out our teleconference this morning with our final head coach in Jerry Mack of North Carolina Central. The Eagles defeated Gardner-Webb from the Big South this past Saturday and will remain home to face Norfolk State on Saturday. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan.
Coach, just talk about last week's non-conference win versus Gardner-Webb, and how does that impact your program in terms of competing against your FCS non-conference peers, but specifically your FCS in-state peers?
Well, I think anytime you get a chance to go against another FCS within the state, because we run across Gardner-Webb a lot in recruiting, as far as recruiting a lot of the same kids, it was always big, to have an opportunity to get that win in our state, and especially at home. It's just going to help from a recruiting standpoint as we get on the road this upcoming winter. But also, too, it's the first time I think that we beat an outside of the conference opponent at the same level since I've been here. So I think that was really good for our program. It's just to show the growth in our program over the last 4 years and where we're at. As far as the way the team played, really proud of the way those guys went out there and performed. You know, sometimes when you play a non-conference game in the middle of the season like that, it's a little bit harder to get guys up for that game because it doesn't have as much value as far as what some of your goals that you set forth at the beginning of the season are. But we did have some goals as far as to keep the streak alive, as far as winning games at home, continue our winning streak at home. And then anytime you get a chance to compete and try to move up in the polls or even try to compete to try to get another win on your record is always good. So really impressed with the way those guys played this past week.
And speaking of how your team played, specifically your freshman quarterback had a career game passing 333 yards and 2 touchdowns. And plus, there was an 89-yard pass reception also that took place. So just talk about what now do you think that kind of confidence will be able to go further on in the season?
Well, we've been talking in the entire year about our quarterback just getting better week to week. You know, this was his 4th game, I think, as coming into the game as a starter, and we really wanted him to focus on throwing the ball down the field more, staying a little bit more poised in the pocket, and he was able to do that because he can do it, so he has the ability. So we wanted to make sure we really emphasize that going into the game week. We all know that he can run the ball. He's shown flashes of he's really a strong runner, but I think now he's starting to develop some more and more confidence as far as a pocket passer as well. He just showed a lot of poise, and that was big for us. Because if we're going to make a run at this thing as we get into the late October and November stretch, we're going to have to become a lot more balanced. We just can't depend on him to run the ball and our running backs. We're going to have to become a total offense as far as passing the ball and running the ball.
And speaking of this week's opponent, Norfolk State, which I did ask Coach Scott, they're kind of a mirror of you all in terms of both of y'all feature young quarterbacks and young offensive players. But both of you all have an experienced defense which can rise to the occasion and win games when needed. So just talk about Norfolk State and what they bring to the table.
Well, Coach Scott's done a great job down there as far as building the program. What you see in them is they keep getting a little bit better every year. And I think that's what you want in your program, to show the growth, because eventually that growth is going to turn into the wins in the win column. And he's done a good job. It's a very young team. There are a lot of young guys on their roster in the 2 deep. And they're getting a lot of game experience, very similar to us right now. We got a lot of young guys getting a lot of game experience. And, you know, whenever you're playing 2 young quarterbacks, you know, you just kind of look forward to Saturday because sometimes you never know what's going to happen. But, you know, very impressed with the way Norfolk has been out there competing. They had a chance to win the game last week. That game really could have went either way, and they could be sitting in the same situation that we're sitting in as far as undefeated in the conference. So, you know, we got our hands full. The quarterback is young, he's growing, he's getting better week to week, and their defense has always been good in Norfolk State, and this year is no different.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you'd like to register a question, press 1-4 on your telephone keypad. And we're showing no questions at this time.
Coach, one person that's probably, I don't want to put the MVP label on him, but has had a solid season is your punter, Nathaniel Tilk. Talk about his impact overall, but also his performance last week, as he had 4 punts inside the 10-yard line, which definitely affected the field position game.
Right. Well, we actually named Nathaniel Tilk a team captain, one of the team captains last Thursday going into that game against Gardner-Webb. And he went out there and he performed like an MVP candidate for our team. He has been a consistent rock the last 4 years here, and this year he is just playing at a whole nother level, his last final senior year. And what you can see is the growth and the maturity of a guy that came in as a freshman, as a young punter. He started every game since he's been here, and he's just continued to showcase how important he is to our football team, winning the field position battle every week. You know, a lot of times those guys, punters and the kickers, don't get a whole lot of credit as far as the team, as far as within the course of the team. But I think everybody in our team and our program understands how important Nathaniel Tilke is as far as flipping the field, and also to our specialist as well, Aiden Johnson. You see MEAC Clear of the Week, probably 2 or 3 weeks this is already this year. Those guys are right now, they have been the heart and soul of our football team. Don't get a lot of credit sometimes, but the way Nathaniel Tilke is punting the ball, he gives us an opportunity to be successful every week.
And speaking of this week's opponent in Norfolk State, basically it's been 11 points the last 2 years that separated you all. And last year it was a fireworks game. It was a 34-31 shootout. This year, with both defenses playing at a high level, it could go opposite. So just talk about the ebb and flow of playing a team like Norfolk in terms of 1 year it could be offense, next year it could be a defensive type game.
Yeah, very similar to many conference games. A lot of teams in the conference, when it's one of those type games, they're always going to give it, always going to get up and play hard. And Norfolk has always presented a problem for us the last few years. We've been fortunate enough to come out on the winning side the last 3 years, but like you said, it's always come down to the wire. And I don't really expect anything different on this Saturday. We're going to try to get that game to the fourth quarter, and hopefully our guys will have an opportunity to win.
And on defense, last week y'all did a very good job of bottling up Gardner-Webb's quarterbacks. And once again, once you see the stat lines, you see some of the familiar names, Devontae Reynolds and Alden McClellan. Can you talk about them two and their impact on the defense? And also, is there anyone else that may not get as much notoriety but is having a similar impact as those two?
Well, Alden and Devontae, both juniors, are really key players for us on our defense side of the ball. But one plays the strong safety position, one plays the weak safety position, and both of those guys have had really good careers. And now this year, their junior year, they really kind of come into their own. You know, they're going to basically the 3-year starters, and they're going to become, you know, as we move on, they're going to become leaders on our football team probably next year. As far as other guys that have showcased that they really played at a high level, I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Reggie Hunter, number 52, our Mike linebacker. He's been all over the field this past year. Keywan Cox, our defensive end, he's a sophomore. He's been playing really well, you know, providing some pressure on the quarterback. And we got Jaquan Smith, our senior defensive lineman, kind of one of our leaders on our team. We got him back last week as well, and he came to play, and he's just getting, as he gets healthier and healthier, he's just getting better and better.
And lastly, similar to what's going on at A&T in terms of now every game is becoming big in terms of just trying to chase history and remain perfect. In your case, you have the home streak and you have the conference streak. So just talk about trying to get everyone to focus on the game each week and not worry about what's going on outside of the program from that point.
Well, we take a lot of pride in just winning every game at home. We always like to perform well in front of our alums and in front of our crowds and friends and family. As far as the conference streak goes, you know, that's kind of chasing history. We would like to be on the side of history that people remember us for years and years to come. But more importantly, as a football program, as a football team, it is truly one game at a time because we have to figure out a way to continue to get better. We understand that we have not peaked yet, offense or defensively, and we feel like we haven't hit our ceiling quite yet. You know, I think that showed last week with Chauncey Caldwell's performance. You know, he had a career day. Our receivers came and made some good plays down the field. Our defense has played well throughout the year, and I think they're gaining more and more confidence the more they play quality opponents. So that is big for us just to see how good can we actually get. You know, we want to make a run at this thing down the stretch. We got 5 more games left, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to be as good as we can each and every conference game, because each and every conference game is ultimately going to decide who plays for the Celebration Bowl.